Your final PowerPoint file that we're going to go through today is another one concerning the myth of the melting pot, but it's going to look a little bit closer at the immigration issue that our country is currently facing. This does fall under the idea of the melting pot, though, as a whole, and that cultural myth that we have that everyone is welcome in America and everyone can live together and we can live in this harmonious kind of relationship. So the articles you read a couple articles about immigration, at least you were assigned to for this week. One of them was called The Crossing by Ruben Martinez, and I thought that was a really interesting article and kind of gave you a good sorry about that. The article gave you just a good summary of, or a good presentation of an ethical dilemma as far as immigration is concerned. Definitely a moral and ethical dilemma that this narrator is discussing in his article or in his story. And then the other article is called The End of White America, and so make sure you read both of those to kind of help us as we discuss this myth of the melting pot. So just some kind of questions to get us started. How many of you think that the U.S. should allow anyone to immigrate? What are your opinions on this? This is one of probably the most hot topics as far as in the political realm right now, especially with the upcoming election that we'll have in 2016. Immigration just seems to continue to be at the top of the list of issues that is concerning to our nation. How many think that the U.S. today should not allow anyone from another land to move here permanently? And how many of you think that the U.S. should put a quota or a limit on how many people come here from other places? So what is where do you stand on it? Are you on a hard one end that says anyone should be able to come, or the hard opposite end that says no one should be allowed to come, or somewhere in the middle that says, well, maybe we should have this many people come, but they need to be able to speak our language, or they need to, whatever the stipulations may be. So you may fall in any of those places, but this is kind of what we're going to talk about with this. So what I have here are some immigration citizenship questions. And so what these are questions that are true questions asked on an immigration quiz or immigration test that people have to take when they're trying to get their U.S. citizenship. So if you're from another country, you move to America, you're trying to get that American dream and live this awesome life, and you decide to go about it the right way and become a U.S. citizen, you go through all these steps and you have to take a test. So I just want to see how you guys would do on the test. What statement do Americans make as an oath of loyalty to the United States? Who of the following fought for women's rights? In what month do we vote for the president? The rule of law means that no one and no institution is above the law. When is the last day you can mail federal income tax forms? Why do some states have more representatives than other states? Who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner? How many stripes are on the U.S. flag? Everyone living in the United States has the right to blank. For how long do we elect each senator? At what age must all men register for selective service? How many changes or amendments are there to the Constitution? Who vetoes bills? Who signs federal bills into law? Who elects the President of the United States? Okay, now going back through them and just see how you did. This is just for fun to see how you would do on an immigration test. What statement do Americans make as an oath? That's D, the Pledge of Allegiance. Number 2, who fought for women's rights? That's D, Susan B. Anthony. Number 3, in what month do we vote for the president? That's B, November. Number 4, the rule of law means no one and no institution is above the law. That's true. Number 5, when is the last day you can mail your income tax forms? That's B, April 15th. 6, why do some states have more representatives than others? C, larger population. Number 7, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner? C, Francis Scott Key. Number 8, how many stripes are on the U.S. flag? 13, A, 13. Number 9, everyone in the U.S. has the right to B, peaceably assemble. Number 10, how long do we elect each senator? C, for 6 years. At what age must all men register for selective service? B, 18. 12, how many changes or amendments are there to the Constitution? There are D, 27. 13, who vetoes bills? It's the President. Who signs federal bills into laws? President. Again, B. And 15, who elects the President of the United States? And that's B, the Electoral College. So, see how you did on that, and that's just a smattering of the hundreds of test questions that are on an immigration test. So, they are difficult. It's a difficult process that they go through. And now we're going to watch a clip from CBS Evening News. This is an older clip, but I still think the information is pertinent regarding Alabama's immigration laws. And Alabama has some of the strictest immigration laws that we have.
Nowhere is illegal immigration a more pressing issue than in Alabama. In September, Alabama began enforcing the toughest law in the nation. As written, it requires schools to verify the citizenship of students, and it lets police arrest people who don't have ID. We asked Chip Reed to see how enforcement of the law is going, and he starts tonight with one of those families that Newt Gingrich was talking about.
When 15-year-old Jose Perez says goodbye to his mother and family each morning before heading off to school, he asks himself an agonizing question.
Is this the last time I see them? Is this it? And I can never really come to terms with that.
What has Perez so frightened is the section of Alabama's tough new immigration law that authorizes police to jail without bail anyone suspected of being in the U.S. illegally and to hand them over to immigration authorities. The Perez family came from Mexico illegally 13 years ago. They work hard and pay taxes, but now live in fear of being separated.
You spend a lot of time crying.
Yeah. Because it's not fair.
I voted for the bill because I don't support having illegal people here.
But Alabama State Senator Gerald Dial says there have been some unintended consequences. For example, the requirement that schools determine whether each student is here legally, a provision that's been temporarily blocked by a federal court.
School teachers or administrators are not policemen. They need to be teaching.
In Tuscaloosa, at least 66 people, most of them U.S. citizens, have been jailed for driving without a license. Prior to the law, most would have received a citation.
That was just an oversight, so these oversights need to be fixed.
The law's supporters say illegal immigrants cost Alabama $250 million a year on education and social services.
Life's not always a bed of roses.
Jean Deason, a real estate agent outside Birmingham, doesn't want another penny of her tax dollars spent on illegal immigrants and wants the law enforced.
They knew when they came here illegally that they were taking a risk. One of those risks is the fact that they may be separated. Now accept your risk and go on with your life, but don't ask me to support you in what you've done illegally.
Adelina Perez says she considered fleeing Alabama with her family after the law was passed. Not anymore.
we are going to fight
You're going to fight.
to stay here.
Fight to stay in a state where many want them to leave. Chip Reed, CBS News, Birmingham.
The Alabama law is being challenged by the federal government. A federal appeals court has held up enforcement of some parts of the law, waiting for lawyers to make their arguments.
So that's an example of just, a couple of the sides that we see on the immigration debate. And this is as far as the, the Mexican and the southern border is concerned. We more recently have been faced with even more immigration issues with Syrian refugees and different countries who are trying to seek refuge here in our nation. And how do we handle that? And how do we handle the immigration with that? In looking at some of the ideas with the melting pot and immigration, we have to come to terms with why people have come to the United States in the past. Why do you believe they have come to the U.S. in the past? Do they come for the same reasons today? Is it the idea of a better life? Is it the idea of maybe making more money, the American dream, education, as we talked about last week? Why are people coming? What are some of the benefits for immigrants and for the country when people from other lands settle here? What are the immigrants benefiting from, but what are we as Americans benefiting from? And then what complications sometimes develop for both the immigrants and for the country. We see there's a lot of growing pains and issues with that. And so these are all topics that kind of surround the idea of immigration. And so a little bit of that is discussed in the text that you read for this section of the myth, but also just in your discussion post. This discussion post that you have, discussion post 6, last one, is pretty open-ended as far as what you believe. This is such a big topic and a broad topic, but such an important one that I kind of left it a little more open for you to kind of establish what your own ideas are and what your own thoughts are on it. So make sure you're answering that. Make sure you are replying to other people's as well.